too. All right, so we're live on the air right now. Give it just a couple of seconds. Hold on, let me click on my face. You're not going to see a whole lot of my face, but this is my face. All right, so we're live. See, there it is. I told you I was going to have to mute that. There it goes.
Yep.
Yo, Ski Beats is in the chat. What's up? So, all right, so this is going to be a update about the SP2400. If you want to get some more information on the SP2400, you can check the previous videos that we did. There's 2 other videos on the SP2400. One is a live interview with Brad, who I'm about to get to. And also the other one is like a really, really, really early demo of some audio of the SP2400 in its rawest like code form. So first I'm going to introduce Brad Holland of Isla Instruments. And Brad, what the hell is next to you?
Oh, so I just found it out by the garbage.
That's it. So the first thing I want to say is this is some amazing CGI that you're able to do this in full 3D.
Totally photoshopped, yeah.
So
no, listen, last time since we spoke a couple of weeks ago, I've been, you can see the bags under my eyes. I've been going to bed at like 4 o'clock in the morning every day and just working on getting this prototype off the first hardware prototypes off the ground for me and the developers. And I'm pretty almost there. It's looking all right, right?
So I'm gonna get to the very first thing, and I talked to you a little bit about this off the air, but I'm gonna get to this one major part before anything else, because this is what I had hoped would happen, and it is actually happening. So I'm kind of jumping for joy right now. Now, what that is the pads, right? In the pictures that I saw on Instagram. And if you're not following on Instagram, at Flux 302 on Instagram and at Isla Instruments on Instagram. I got yours right?
Yeah.
Okay. So the first thing I noticed was the black spot where the pads are, and I was thinking, oh, did he not put the pads in there? Because I had seen the silicone sensors previously, and we saw the clear renders. But now we're seeing black pads on there. What I wanted to see was black pads that kind of lit up, sort of like how the MPC ones do, where you can still see color, so it's useful in a live scenario, but you also have like that nice black look. So talk to me about that.
Yeah, well, so yeah, you're right. They are silicon. These are actually borrowed pads. This is the final part that I'm waiting for. But the injection mold, which is how these silicon pads are done, the injection mold is in production at the moment. So I'm waiting for the first articles of that to turn up. So at the moment, these are actually borrowed pads from something else that are in there just taking place. The actual pads will be coming soon, but they will be painted black on the top with a couple of millimeters underneath, so that you'll get whatever light is, whatever color light is coming through. But at the moment, these are just sort of taking place in there. But yes, they will be black and not clear. There will be RGB lights underneath, but they're not going to be like, there's not going to be thousands of colors. It's really just colors to indicate which pad is in use on.
When you say that the pads will be painted, right? Just to clarify, you mean that you're going to have silicone colored, right? And not.
Let me take one of these out. Let me take one of these out, and I'll show you.
And the sensor, is that once it's done, is it all going to be one pad silicone piece, or is it going to be individual pads?
No, when it comes out, it will be one piece that's around about a foot long. One just contiguous piece of silicon, like this, but just longer. It's actually 2 parts of silicon. It's black. It's black silicon, a couple of millimeters of black silicon, and then clear silicon underneath. So you get the nice black look on the top with just a little bit of light that's allowed to shine through on the sides.
So I think I'd like to see you just lay your hands around where the pads are to kind of show people that the pads are not some ginormous like monstrosity, because a lot of people were commenting early on like, oh, why such big pads, blah, blah, blah. And it was like, dude, you're looking
Oh,
at a render. Like it.
right. Well, the pads are almost exactly the same size as MPC pads,
Yeah.
basically. So each pad there is about 2 fingers width.
And again, the pads that are going to be on the final unit are going to be thicker, so they'll be pushed out of the unit a bit.
Yeah. So they'll be the profile of the pad will be out of the panel by about 3 millimeters. At the moment, they're reasonably flush with the top of the panel, but yeah, the final product there will be a couple of millimeters. Again, we're not reinventing the wheel there. The same sort of stuff as most drum machines are.
So let's talk just a little bit about the choice of pads versus clicky little buttons. Let's
Yeah,
talk about your thoughts on that.
it was a tough decision because from a speed of manufacturability and also cost, using one of the trends is with a lot of gears tends to be using sort of a tactile switch, like this sort of tactile switch, and then putting a silicon keypad on top of it. So you're pressing a silicon pad, but it's actuating a tactile switch underneath. And in the end, I really want this project to be known for being built like a tank and taking a lot of abuse. So yes, they cost a bit more because these are individual switches, but they feel amazing. On the tops of them, you can't really see probably in the video, but they're kind of concave, so your fingertip sort of fits in them nicely. And they're the sort of switches that you would find on like video post-production consoles and audio consoles and stuff like that. And in fact, that's what they're actually designed for and marketed as.
I see you looking around for some.
I'm looking. Well, I've got a switch in my hand.
Oh, are you looking for the battery?
Yeah, I was just going to show you guys that they actually illuminate as well. And there's a battery.
Don't you go moving that camera around. We had that camera set up nice. See, now
sorry,
you got to lift it up a little bit.
Is that all right?
You got to lift the camera up a little bit.
Yeah.
Yep. I'm going to stickler on this. Okay, there. That's perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah. So go ahead and show them that.
Yeah. There. So that's probably be really bright in the video, but there'll be obviously a resistor in line with the light when it's in the machine, so it won't be as bright. But that's just a real quick reference so that you can see what mode you're in. So across here, these would be sort of familiar modes that were sort of broken out on the classic unit. We've got a bank here, but then we've got, this was one that you had to dive into the menu to get, loop and truncate loop. So we've got a direct button for that. So if we go into loop, truncate, loop mode, we're just pressing that button, and that button will be lit red. So the lights there are just to give you a real quick visual reference as to what mode you're in, etc. So we've got loop, truncate mode. We've got multi-mode. So you're in multi-level. Press multi-mode again, and you're in multi-pitch mode. Envelope. Pitch and mix, and then assign. So we've got an assign button here. Assign, move a pot there, and you can assign what you want to be on that control.
Can you talk a little bit about, you mentioned envelope on there?
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about the envelope?
Well, we're planning on there being sort of envelope controls. On the original, you could only have decay or filter, and of course you'll be able to have both on this, but we're looking at opening up that a little bit more to have some envelope controls. So you can probably see that as something like in envelope mode, pad voice 1 there, attack, decay, sustain, release, and then come back out again. You've set your envelope.
Nice.
But again, like I said, we've got assign, and then you can press assign, move a control. So I can say, okay, assign this knob here. I want that to be decay. There you go, or release. So there'll be multiple options, but at the root of things, it's important that I want to stress that it should be second nature to someone that's used a classic unit. From its out of the box behavior, it's going to sequence and everything exactly the same, and these buttons are obviously very similar to the old workflow there.
So let's talk a little bit about those. And this is going to sound great. Let's talk about your knob.
Again, really?
Yeah, again. Now you've got some nice hard knobs there. They look pretty sturdy. I'm infantile. Deal with it. So yeah, no, you've got these concentric knobs on there. And when we talked about it before, we had the render, but the render didn't have that. So I'm really interested to kind of see about that. Now I don't know if those are the final ones.
Seems to have. Sorry, go on. Say that.
Yeah,
finish.
I don't know if those are the final ones or what, but I'd like to just kind of have your conversation about that.
Yeah, these aren't the knobs that were supposed to. So to get the prototype together, for the production ones, I've had to do a minimum order for my concentric pots, and unfortunately, they have to have the shafts for the pots. We're going in with all sorts of words here, aren't we? They have to have the shafts made for the pots specifically, so I had to do a minimum order, and they take 2 months to make. So I used a slightly more off-the-shelf part, which comes with slightly thinner shafts that you have to use smaller knobs on. And so these are the knobs that I'm using right now. But if you just give me a moment, I'll share with you the original ones that I've been looking at using. What was surprising because I seem to have to explain a lot what concentric pots are, and it's right. You don't really see them on gear other than guitars.
You don't see them a lot, and then on top of that, it's just, I mean, to be quite frank, that's more like engineering stuff than it is the average consumer. You know, you're gonna see when products are marketed, you're just not gonna see people talking like that. So, you know, even when it's marketed, you would normally see somebody just say, "Oh, dual action" or something to that effect. You know what I mean? Dual function knobs and that sort of thing. So we'll see what happens.
I'm just one sec. Sorry.
So I'm gonna hijack the conversation. If you're watching this and you're not in the live chat, you're part of the problem in life. So hop into the live chat, go ahead and call me bad names, all that kind of stuff. There's plenty of people who like to do that. So I'm welcome to see you in the live chat. Okay, now you're back.
Yeah, so the concentric or dual pot knobs are potentiometers that have an outer shaft and an inner shaft. So it's essentially 2 pots in one body that are both independent. And so the original knobs that I was looking at using, these are really heavy brass, painted black. So you've got an outer knob here at the bottom and then another knob at the top. But while I'm waiting for my ones to be produced, I had to get these other knobs, which are a bit smaller, but actually they're growing on me. They feel really nice. So yeah, you've got 2 pots and a fader on each channel there. So that can be cut off and resonance at the bottom, or you could have you could have release on the top, envelope release on the top, and filter cut off on the bottom.
And assigning like you said, you'll be able to map and assign. Is that going to be something that's a really quick and fast process? So that, like, let's say I want it cut off in resonance, and then I do want to like just change it on the fly. Is it like how many button presses are you expecting it to be?
Well, this is what I'm trying to do. So this assign button is there, and this is how I see it in my head. Okay, so I want to let's say there's different functions I can apply to this top knob of this dual pot. So if I press assign, the unit's waiting for something to be assigned. I'll press assign, move this knob, and it's like, okay, you want to assign something to that knob? What do you want to assign? And this will probably be like the Nokia style list wheel here. I want that to be filter cut off, bang, and that's then filter cut off. You know?
See, to me that's a quick and fluid.
Hold one button, turn it round, let go, and then you're assigning. Press it again, it's done. So it's 2. You don't even have to do that over here. You can do it here. So it's 1 button, move, let go of the button, press. It's 4 steps, but with two buttons.
So okay, so we've got these dual action pots. We've got easy to assign functionality of them. what are you kind of seeing about the layout now that you have hands on the actual layout? Are you finding that it's fitting together kind of the way that you had hoped? How are you feeling about the buttons along the top above the pots? I know some people were griping about that.
Were they?
I have my own opinions about that. I'll save that until after you say yours, and then we'll go from there.
That's not fair.
Okay, well then I'll say it now. I don't think it's going to be an issue, and here's why. I thought about it a lot because my initial, I think a lot about, especially screen layouts. I deal with a lot of companies, and when they're in the early stages of prototyping and whatnot. And one of the big questions for a lot of companies is, does a screen go above a knob or below a knob? And your hand. So for instance, a great one would be machine versus push. If you look at the knob layouts, right?
Yeah.
Push has, you're going above, and there's an advantage to that. And then machine has it the opposite way, and there's an advantage to that. But with buttons above a knob like that, some people wanted to say, oh, well, that's not ergonomically good
Oh,
because
right, okay.
the knob is in the way or whatever.
I
But
think
really, here's my thought process on it. If you have a button above, you can press a button with like your middle finger or whatever and be turning the knob with these fingers here. So like for me, my natural hand would lay down and be able to touch a button and turn a knob at the same time.
right. Yeah, I mean, I was going to say from the visual thing of maybe something being obstructive, and to bring that back to what the question that you asked just before we talked about specific knob layout is, and how I felt now it's together. The space that you've got is really nice. So I think had everything been closer together, yeah, it wouldn't be so nice having these buttons above these knobs because they might be getting obstructed by them. But with everything being spread out, quite a lot, there's enough breathing space between everything, so nothing's being obstructed. And as you say, yeah, you can turn the knob there and quite easily be pressing other buttons at the same time.
Yep.
Is that how you see it?
Yep. Yeah, no.
Yeah.
I thought long and hard about this. I really did. Like this was something that like when I first saw the initial render, I racked my brain about, okay, does this make sense for what the functionality of the unit's going to be? And the more I thought about it, the more I was like, you know what,
Yeah, it's
that's
all well and good
actually,
doing a render of something, but
it's
until
going to
you've
be
physically got it in front of you.
certain gear that I use, I like my hands kind of lay on it a certain way, and you start to develop like a muscle memory of different
Yeah,
functions.
yeah,
That's to me, like the more I thought about it, the more I was like, you know what, that's going to end up being like a muscle memory thing where like you're going to just tap these buttons like intuitively while grabbing a knob, and you're not even going to think about it.
yeah. I don't know. I feel that the layout of this, for one, because of its simplicity anyway, but I think this should lend itself well to that, like the muscle memory thing, like you said. You've got your performance functions here, your transport functions there. You really haven't got to use the screen for much. You haven't really got to look at the screen especially if you're just sort of performing around with it. You don't need to look at the screen. I think it should be pretty ergonomic. Now it's physically in front of me, and it looks pretty much just like the render, which is weird because you look at the render and you get stuck with that in your mind, but then you get when you finish building the real thing, you're like, oh, it looks just like the render. This is photoshopped, really.
So yeah. Well, clearly, I mean that's how you're able to touch it.
No, having the physical thing built in front of you has definitely been affirmation to me that it's the right design. I'm pretty happy with the layout and the way it looks. But there's a lot of people. There's a good few people that are going to be involved in the sort of beta testing and software testing stage.
Well, hold on. I'm cutting you off.
That'll be giving me feedback about.
We're not ready to go. We're not ready to go into that. I'm going to get to that. I'm still talking about the physical unit because Logan is in the chat.
Hey, Logan.
So I want to bring up a point that Logan was talking about concentric knobs. And Logan is adamant that he's not a fan of concentric knobs. I know that you know this. So he he feels that they're not going to be fun to tweak, right? Having concentric knobs, and his concern is about replacing them 10 years down the road. Which, you know what, earn your money, okay? If you're 10 years down the road replacing pots for people, earn your money, dude. But no, about the twisting the knobs. What I would like to know is how are you feeling about the ergonomic feel of the knob in hand? That's right. I went there. I was waiting to see if you would catch all of that.
Oh, come on, stop this. I think I really like them. So I don't know if I'm just going to be, if I go blue in the face saying how good they are, the proof will be in the pudding. If other people, I think this is something that could catch on. I don't see it in any gear. Maybe that's for a reason. Personally, I really like the way they feel and the having everything under one knob at the same time. One of the things I think is really that they're going to lend themselves really well to is, let's say that you're tuning a loop. Okay, if you imagine you're tuning a loop, the bottom, let's say for instance, the bottom knob there can be which part of the WAV file that you're in, and the top knob can be the length of the loop itself. So you can change the length of the loop and where in the sample the loop's occurring at the same time, which is a bit like using DAW software where you sort of click with the mouse and move the mouse up and left and right to sort of zoom in and out with it. So I think there's a lot of functions that the concentric knobs that will lend themselves to really well. Like you said, when people get it in their hands, they'll either say these concentric knobs are really good or they're really shit, and they'll just have to have one knob then. Because there won't really be room for two. There might be, but I don't know. We'll see.
Well,
Is that the answer you wanted?
yeah, I mean, it kind of is, because it's going to be interesting to see how that workflow is. I think that the size of them they look usable to me.
Yeah,
So
they're not tiny by any stretch. No, they're not tiny.
yeah, it doesn't seem quite so fiddly. And if it was a fiddly situation, then yeah, I would probably be like, well, that's going to be an issue, but doesn't really bother me. So I'm trying to catch up some of these questions here.
Yeah, I'm just reading through the comments.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm trying to catch up with all that. And I also just, I just bought a brand new bottle of gin, and it tipped over and broke on my floor. So I was trying to keep it away from my electrical cords. Um, so,
I'd like to address, let me just address like directly to Pete Marriott there. I wouldn't want people worrying about spare parts. So there's two things, and one thing I sort of alluded to earlier on in the chat was, one, I'm building this thing like a tank, right? These aren't plastic pots; they're solid brass shafted pots. Not to say they can't still break, but yeah, of course. The casing's going to be metal. They're real heavy duty buttons. Like I said, I want everyone to think that they can, almost throw this thing down the stairs and it's going to be fine. Don't do that. But I'm really concentrating on making this thing super solid. And of course, it's warranty and everything anyway. So worrying about buying spare parts along with it, no, come on, man.
yeah, I think that's going a step far. And I mean, do you do that when you buy any other gear? I don't.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I mean that's just a bit. So okay, I want to handle one other aspect of it, and that is a lot of people. I keep seeing this over and over and over again. So I'm just going to bring it up in like every live stream. So it's not a clone. You're not screwing with anybody's patents. You're not doing anything like that. It's a spiritual successor. You're taking something that was loved and you're reimagining it in a different way.
Yeah, it's my take on it.
Yeah. So can you talk to me a little bit about I've seen comments about the screen color, for instance, people talking about the fact that it's red. So talk to me about the Isla Instruments colors.
Yeah, the Isla Instruments colors, as you've already seen from ChordBot and other designs of stuff that I've done, are grey. They're greys, blacks, and red and white. So Yeah, there isn't. I'm not trying to do anyone a disservice by not sticking true to form on certain things. But as you said, I'm not making a clone. I'm making something that has the very similar workflow and an extremely similar, hopefully if not the same, if you choose to use that sound. Uh, you know, so 12-bit, loads of aliasing due to there not being any interpolation, and dropping samples, and that whole methodology of how pitching worked is in there. But at the same time, you want to run a vocal or something alongside it. You might want the vocal to be at 48 kilohertz and 24-bit, so having the best of both worlds in there. Like I said, somebody is already working on a clone DIY project. So that if that's what you're looking for, that's where you should be going. But this is a continuation of, or as you said, a spiritual successor, and seeing how far this is to me, this is a kind of a lost format. It's really sort of I don't want to use the word analog, that's the wrong word, but the method of workflow is really hands-on and sort of pre TFT LCD screen and all that kind of business. It's much more of an instrument that you're going to sit at and you're just going to get inspired by, because it's just so quick to work with, the using the faders and everything to work with, rather than the more modern approaches that were taken. And that's what I'm trying to make a continuation of. And I think that's a workflow that isn't really used or seen anymore. And I think it's missed. I think it's really missed. It's really quick just to get something, bang a sample in the back, put a bit of vinyl on the deck, sample it in, and you're done. You're on there already. Whereas with a lot of modern gear, that can be, that's an evening of sitting down and getting stuff prepared,
Yeah, I
So,
think it's important to kind of look at it and see. So we talked in the previous interview a little bit about the underside of it, like what the processor and the memory and all that stuff. And we had talked about it being over spec. So now you have actual physical boards, and we can we can talk a little bit more about that. Do you have you had the analog chips on there and everything? Can we talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So this is there's two boards. There's the user interface board, which obviously holds all of the user interface electronics, and a very heavily overspec'd microcontroller on this board. So this will be taking care of the control electronics and the sequencer. So from that aspect, and the LCD, the OLED, sorry. So from that aspect, this microcontroller is really overspec'd. So that means there's lots of room to do whatever we might want to do in the future from the MIDI perspective, the sequencing perspective. Then the second board, which also has its own microcontroller, is just all it does is take care of communications with the outside world in terms of USB and the SD card, and the DAC, 8 channels of DAC, and 6 channels of input. At the moment, we're only using 4 of those channels. So there's 2 different inputs. This was something that seemed to be a topic of debate when the original render was out there. There's 2 inputs here. One is almost like a direct input, which is reasonably just pretty much going straight into the DAC, the codec, and another input which follows the classic machine, which is mimicking the analog input circuitry that was used there. And then everything else, you got the 2 SSI filters, and the same EQ.
Just explain to people real quick the SSI filters. SSI is the company that has reissued the classic SSM filters that were in the SP1200. So just be aware of that's what it means when you hear SSI. That's the analog filter chips that were previously in classic.
Yep, slightly improved circuitry, but nothing that's no sonic differences. So yeah, sorry, they're on there, and on this original prototype, they're following the original, but by popular demand, it seems that it's probably the right thing to do to put one of those filters on every channel, on all 8 channels. What else can I talk about on this board? Also, yeah, there's USB host and there's USB device. So as USB device, we should be able to throw audio back out again into a computer if a computer is connected to it. But we've also got USB host there for connecting USB drives, thumb drives, but also, and that's already working in the firmware actually on the USB host, is you can plug an external keyboard in or an external trigger pad, anything that's a USB class compliant MIDI controller, and that's a lot of them. You know, basically all modern MIDI controllers that are just MIDI controllers will plug straight in the back of this and can be used to control it. And in actual fact, that's how we've been doing a lot of the development, by using an external USB MIDI controller, because we didn't have the user interface to do the development on. So yeah, that's that for this board. And of course, we got normal standard MIDI and an SD card there. That was a question that I get asked a lot about, about sampling time. Theoretically, it should be reasonably, it's only really limited by your SD card. But so it's definitely not going to be something to worry about, not having enough sampling time. There's plenty of that to go around. Are you still there?
No, I'm listening. So, so you're talking about adding more filters to it. Is that something that you've decided on?
No, it's not something that's been decided on, but when the when the sort of focus group gets going on it. Right now, I'm building 3, and they should be done by the end of the weekend. And then the list, which has been slowly growing a little bit, once these are running up nicely, and we know that there's nothing drastic that we have to change real quick on the hardware, we're gonna build another 10 or 15, and they're gonna go out to our like VIP focus group thing. And so then I think we'll get a lot of valuable feedback then. And we already should be able to have the filters on every channel anyway, but they'll be digital filters. Now, if they sound good, then do we really need analog filters? But again, that's something that I don't want to solely be the judge of. So other people will be involved in that. But as it stands now, the bog standard board has the 2 filters on it, as like the classic unit did. Same topology.
So I guess from that we can kind of naturally parlay into some of the people that are already kind of on board.
Yeah.
And what I'll say about this is I don't want to stress on it, right? I just want to say, like, there's been a lot of people involved for a long time now.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
just because certain things
Yeah,
are
it was
made
going back
now,
towards, the last sort of half of last year, and it was, I'm thinking about doing this, and there was people that I always wanted involved. Some obvious, some not so obvious. You're one of them, Ken.
So as of right now, is there anybody that you can talk about that, like, you've been in contact with, consulting with, and like, are like, you know what, this person's definitely going to help the project?
What? I don't know. Yeah, am I allowed to say that?
I don't.
I mean, some of those people are already obvious because they've posted on my page.
Okay, yeah. And some of them are retweeting an awful lot of that stuff. I've noticed that as well.
Yeah, well, obviously, at the top of the list, there's like you. There's Chaz Emphatic from Mummy Club. He's actually got a thing called the SP2400, which is one that he had some super talented guys modify and stick 2 together. But I really love that guy's music, and he's been really supportive. He was one of the first people to know that I was sort of getting on this, doing it. And I've been chatting to him for quite a while. He's been really supportive. So he's on there. I know he's talked about it. Questlove has been lovely and been chatting about it a lot. And kind of on my behalf, he's been sort of liaising with, you know, a lot of the big guys, and they're all rooting for it and want to get behind it as well. So they're on the waiting list to get some. So you got like Just Blaze, like Marley Marl. Hopefully I'm going to see Kenny Dope tomorrow down at WMC. He's been another guy that I've been talking to all along about it. He's a house legend from Masters at Work. There's loads of people. DJ Premier. There's a lot of people on the list. I don't know if they want me to say anything or not, so I don't want to. Maybe I shouldn't open my mouth about that too much.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. We'll keep that on the hush hush. I just want to say that like I kind of more press the issue more than probably you would even want. But the reason I do that is just because there are people who have a platform, like YouTube gives a platform to a lot of people, whether they're ignorant or intelligent.
Easy Moby as well. Sorry, dude. Of course, you're up
Easy Moby.
Well.
Shouts to Easy
Obviously.
But yeah, I mean, there's just I would just say be mindful of who you listen to online because they may not know what they pretend to know.
There's a lot of that
kind of thing.
There is a lot
that
of
kind
that
of thing gets under my skin because I see a lot more behind the scenes than I'm allowed to even talk about.
Yeah.
When I see certain things that are like really just ugly, I'm like,
it's
dude, there's no need for that.
Yeah, I still find it difficult now. I mean, even with Chordbot and stuff, there's a lot of people that just want to see you burn.
Yeah.
And so I think some people sometimes specifically try and get a rise out of you by being shitty with you personally. And then when you're shitty with them back personally,
it's all of a sudden,
they like to go into a public, bring it into a public forum then and say, oh, you're rude and you're a shitbag. Well, dude, we just exchanged 20 emails with me starting out being nice and you just goad and goad and goad. And when I eventually tell you to piss off or something, then it goes dragged out onto a public forum or something like that somewhere. I've said this a few times. I'm human. I'm always late with stuff. I'm doing my best, but I'm going to make mistakes, and people seem to take that personally sometimes. And it's I'm not doing anything. There's about 3,000 Chordbots or so out there now, and most people, I hope around 85% of those people at least are like super happy and supportive. And then, unfortunately, the miserable ones are the ones that tend to let it be known that they're miserable.
So I'm getting a comment from.
I'm getting thicker skin these days, so I tend.
Let me just say this. In regards to some of the comments in the thread, so I am getting a comment that I think is a fairly reputable comment, and that is we need some younger dudes on that list. It has to be retro and futuristic. This has the potential to be an amazing machine. I think that's you
know why there aren't that many young dudes? Because I'm old.
Fair enough. And I know
that's a really good suggestion.
I know of plenty of young guys that make sense, and I'll throw out some suggestions towards that off the air. But I mean,
no, that's a great suggestion. Yeah, and you know what? That hadn't even naturally occurred to me either. You're so right. But there you go. You run off on a one track thing, and you don't see stuff in front of your face.
Yeah, and I would also say that one aspect of this project that's got me kind of excited is just that you're not, in conversations that we've had, and I'm not going to reveal too much here, but in conversations that we've had off the air, you're not thinking too directly inside the box. The idea is that when you get it, if you're familiar with the past, you'll be able to work right on it and it'll be intuitive. However, you're also forward thinking and saying like, how can we improve upon it and what can we do next? Right.
Yeah.
And that kind of leads into the whole overspecking of the processor, and you've got the memory. We keep getting questions about like how much memory is this? How much sample time are we going to have? Have you given more thought about how that functionality is going to work?
Not really, if I'm honest, just because there's sample time there and you're not going to run out of it.
Yeah.
Crippling the device by only allowing you to do 10 or 15 seconds worth of sampling to bring you closer to the original isn't really I don't really think the responsibility of that is on me or on the machine. if you like that way of working, then only sample 10 seconds worth of sound.
Sure. Only put
You know?
2.5 to a pad.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. But I don't think that's down to me to put the hardware into some sort of cripple mode or something. That's your own self-discipline and very much the way that you work. You know, there's a methodology to doing some of that sampling to get that sort of crystalline fairy dust sort of sound. And at the same time, you know, doing the +8 on putting a 33 on 45 and putting it on +8 and then sampling it in was served several purposes. Yes, it served the purpose of giving yourself a bit of extra sampling time, but that also introduced a lot more of the aliasing because you were pitching the sound down so much, you know.
Yeah, yeah,
So
absolutely. And then there's
it was doing
also
two different things, and so you're going to still get the same effect doing that with this machine. But you know, some people have said that, you know, oh, the only reason that thing you only did that was you put it on 45, and that was because you didn't have the sampling time. Yes, that is true, but it's also true that by doing that, you were introducing more aliasing because you were having to pitch it down that much further to get it back to the original speed, which is what gave it that sonic, those sonic qualities. So they're tricks that you're still going to want to do to get that sound, you know.
well, hold on. Let's dive into that a little bit, because I would say in the past that was correct. Like in the past when it was happening, that was correct. However, modern producers like Madlib and many other producers, right? Currently today, we will pitch our sample. We will purposely do that specifically for the sound and then resample that into some other platform so that we can work, because we like
Yeah,
the sound of that. You know what I mean?
yeah,
That sound became synonymous with it, with a period of time and
yeah.
with a style of music that now it kind of it came on to be its own thing. So with that being said, I also want to bring up another aspect of how modern samplers work and how modern color samplers work. And what I mean by that is samplers that you use specifically for their tone and the way they color a sample. And that is, will we be able to not only do like 20.6 kilohertz, but can we also change the sample rate? So like, let's say I wanted to sample at 11 kilohertz. Would I be able to do that?
Um, yes, I believe that. I believe that you will. While it's not in the firmware right at this instant, I don't see it being a problem. We have already got 27.5 and 26040, which are
Mhm.
the same as the two original units. But yeah, being able to employ several different sample rates is, you're basically just running it through different filters, and that's not it's not too difficult to be doing that. So yes, yeah, we can do that. It's just not in there right now. I'm not going to promise to. That's a trivial thing, but one of the mistakes that I made last time around with Kickstarter is promising the Earth. So while we've embedded a lot of future proofing into this in terms of processor and memory and all that kind of stuff, features would be something that extra features are something that we want to more openly discuss rather than just say, yeah, we can do that. We'll be doing that. You know.
Okay, so another question that we're seeing in here, seconded by a few people, is people asking about, like, essentially they're asking about micro timing, and the other question that would tie into that is PPQ of a sequencer.
Yeah. PPQ is something that there will be a bit more advanced stuff on, but again, for at least the first release,
Hmm.
the first firmware release that comes with this machine, it's going to be at least on par with what the original methodology and workflow was. Okay, so how we expand upon that in the future and where that goes is something that we will develop. But in terms of stuff like microtonal and microtiming, sorry, and all that kind of stuff, I don't, because we haven't given that really too much thought right now. There's no point me sort of discussing whether or not it's going to do it. I'm not saying no. It's just that our focus right now is getting it ready to be getting it into production. and having its capabilities at least on par or slightly excelling what the original units were doing.
Sure,
Does that make sense?
And recouping some costs so that you can continue development, right?
Oh man, these are the most expensive. This is the most expensive drum machine ever built, I think, right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's here's one thing I'll say, and I'm just say it. I don't care. The last really, I mean, granted, I have a rhythm here, but the last really expensive drum machine that I bought would have been the Tempest, and that sucker was the
I've never
exact
seen one of
opposite
those in
in
the flesh.
terms.
I really coveted it, and I have never got one. Never
Well, let
used.
me just tell you something. Let me just tell you something.
I know a lot of people seem to complain about the firmware, and didn't they announce that we're not doing any more work on it anymore, which seemed a little bit.
Listen, it might not be Festivus time, but I could air some grievances. So when you pay, listen, it's a fantastic drum machine. I would honestly, I would say I probably like it more than my rhythm. But here's what I will say. When you talk about paying a premium for a product, it's nice to know that you overspec instead of underspec. And the digital side of that Tempest is severely underspec. And
is that what it was? Yeah.
Well, here's the thing. So if you make a drum machine and I can't store more than 10 songs on it before the memory runs out of the damn thing, and I'm not even storing samples, we might want to fight. I'm just saying. So that kind of, if I can't sync up like proper external MIDI without it slowing down the internal clock, and that's why you prevent external MIDI from working with it, because it's slowing down the external the clock, we might want to fight. I'm just saying. So to me, when I hear that, like, okay, you're going to go ahead and overspec it, not necessarily for the 1.0 release, but more for like what you're envisioning down the line, that's a beautiful thing. That's something that gets me very, that gets me excited,
Yeah. There's a few people I think are saying, can you just turn it on? I can't turn this on yet, and I'll explain why. So I'm the hardware guy at Isla Instruments, and as you know now, there's now two software developers, and so the process involved there is, we've done a lot of the coding for the audio engine is already done, and that's done on a development board, which nobody liked the look of because it was just literally a processor with a little touchscreen on it, and I think everybody thought that that was it. That was just a development board. And so the next phase in the hardware prototyping stage is that, I have to build these, which I've just almost finished doing now. That means putting these boards together, putting everything in the case so it's close to the final product. Now, if I turn this round, you're going to see the boards are inside there for everything. I'll be having 3 of these will be finished. I'll have built them by the end of the weekend. Then they get shipped off. One stays with me, one goes to Bill, and the other goes to our other developer who's in Germany. And he is then going to be porting the existing code base that we've got that's running onto this hardware. And at that point, then I can start giving you some super exciting demos of exactly how it sounds and some comparisons. And obviously we rapidly then come towards being able to decide on how we're rolling it out into production, but that's the whole point of me building this thing up now, is to get this so that I can ship it off to those guys and they can then get the code running on it, and then as soon as that's running, you're going to start hearing it. I just wanted to answer that question because I know people are saying, can you turn it on and can we hear it?
Sure. So how soon are you expecting to so you have to ship that out, have code imported on it, right?
Yeah.
How soon are you expecting to have a up and running prototype that that's running in that box?
Yeah, I think probably there should be some substantial demos being able to be done by end of next week.
Oh boy.
If my developer's watching that, he's probably going, you bastard.
Yeah, well, that's true. And you know what? I'm gonna just go ahead and say it because I feel for them. So I've been involved in a lot of this kind of stuff, and unexpected things arise. And if it doesn't happen that quick, then hey, you at least know that they're grinding on it. You know what I mean?
Dude,
don't
seriously, I've been obsessing over this now, since we last spoke. we speak pretty much every other day, at least, don't we, online in some form or the other. And you've been seeing photos and stuff of it coming along, but like ChordBot, for instance, ChordBot took nearly a whole year, but this thing I've been like pulling some ridiculous late nights and stuff on just getting it ready. So it's come together way quicker.
So, man, I'm just excited because I've been seeing the pictures the past few days, and I saw everything come together. The fit and the finish, right? Usually, when you get products, when you get your tool made samples and all that kind of stuff in, usually there's a lot of tweaking that has to go on.
Yeah.
Can you talk to me about how this thing fit together when you got it, like with these early prototype parts?
Just some like savage backwards and forwards with CAD. The whole thing has been designed rather than me doing little silly sketches and stuff. I've employed a very capable SolidWorks. Well, there's a CAD package software called SolidWorks, which is like pretty much de facto standard for designing anything industrial design. And every step of the way, like every single part that's gone into it this time around has been like meticulously measured and modeled, and like looked at the form and fit in CAD, and just gone real into it this time to get everything exact and lining up nicely. Like I said, that all falls back on me wanting this to be built like a tank, and nice. And I think that extra effort and everything's paid off, because this is where we're at much quicker.
So, okay, I'm kind of scrolling through the chat here because we got a lot of comments in here, and I just don't want to miss too much, because somebody was talking about my mom last time I missed a comment. And straight up, first off, don't talk about my mom. Second off, my mom, I tagged her in the post, so who's the asshole now? Yeah, man. So the interactivity with external gear, like you said, you got USB host and USB device.
Yeah.
Is there
There's so many possibilities that come along with being USB host, man. And
oh yeah,
they're just like loads of different stuff. So there was one thing that, and this sort of ties in with a USB host. Me and my developer made a joke. Someone quite rightly asked me the question. They said, "Oh, where's the keypad?" And so I might be wrong, but I don't think I am. I'm putting my chips on my sort of redesigned workload, so to speak. But there's several options for inputting numbers. These buttons across the top can be used for 0 to 8. You got 0 to 8 on the pads there if you want, and you can also rapidly change this encoder to get through numbers. Now I'm talking about going from 0 to 8, not 0 to 9. So it's 0 to 88. I don't feel that you need really 99 patterns in a song. Some people might disagree with me, but I've never done a song with 99 different patterns in it. Have you?
I'm thinking hard, and I want to say,
I think you can get by with 88 patterns in a song.
I want to say,
especially if those patterns are 32 bars long or something.
Yeah, I want to say the most, as long as I can do repeats, I'm okay.
Yeah, exactly. So I chopped off a digit, okay, to sacrifice what I wanted to do around here and modernizing that. Again, you don't need to be going into setup and typing in a number to get into things like loop mode or multi-pitch mode, because the buttons are already right there for one press.
So I'm going to dive into this question here, because
and so just going back to the USB host thing, it was a joke that me and a developer made, that you can just plug in a USB keyboard with a numerical keypad on it.
Yeah, and honestly,
you really miss it that much.
Just to be clear, no Bluetooth, right?
No.
Okay, I just wanted to be clear on that, because that seems to be creeping into gear these days.
It does. Well, ChordBot's got Bluetooth, but you know what? There also seems to be a lot of issues, especially with Apple stuff, connecting to Bluetooth on the ChordBot. It seems to have been more trouble than it's worth, really.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean,
and there's some really cool indie projects out there that give you that Bluetoothify your MIDI ports anyway. So
yeah, I actually have one right around here. I just pulled it out for some reason. I think so that I could lose it again. Um, that seems to always happen with those Bluetooth MIDI dongles. Yeah, the other thing that I was going to say is people are still asking, are you on track for the same price point that we discussed last time, which was sub 1,000? Are you
Yes.
still thinking that that's going to happen?
Yes. Yeah.
Absolutely cool. Yeah, yeah. They're asking, can chat get a discount or just me? Fair enough.
The only real discounts that are available are going to be my existing ChordBot customers, because I owe those guys.
Hold on.
You know,
To that point,
I owe those guys everything that I am right now, because
well,
they
to
backed
that
me.
point,
They backed an
there's a
idea that
question,
I had,
and
and they
there's a
brought that
question
to
that
life.
that's a good one. Here's a good one. I can't pronounce that name. Alunmov. I don't know. If I buy a ChordBot now, will that help me get an SP2400 sooner?
Actually, that's something I said in an update the other day. I think there's only about 40 or so ChordBots, right? Because I need to dedicate some more time to this. So I'm doing one more build of ChordBots now in the next week or two, which is like a big 500 unit build. And there's there's 40 or so left out of this build, and then I'm not making them again until like July or August, because that's when I need to get this production ready, and I can't do both. Now, when this comes into production, then hopefully I'll have a couple more guys on it with me. So, you know, I'll be able to have the headroom to be able to do both products. And I also said in the last update that I've now moved the entire production for the PCB board to the same company in China that does my bare PCB. So a lot of that extra legwork's being done for me. So everything should start coming back much smoother to me late summer. But yeah, like I said, the guys that have supported Isla Instruments already and got me to where I am today, I owe them everything. And so that's the least I can do is, you know, first give them the first orders, let those guys get the first units, and I'm sure I'll be working out a discount with them.
Here's a good question.
I don't know how much the discount will be yet, but there will be.
Will ChordBot be able to speak to the SP2400? So I guess he means through MIDI, like, you know.
Yes, and in fact, in several ways, because this has got USB host, and ChordBot is a class compliant USB MIDI MIDI device. So you can plug ChordBot directly into this without anything else in between.
There's been 2 questions asking if you're accepting investors.
I don't know. I'm not going to say no about investors. We'll see. Possibly.
Okay. Another question was about the discs. So you had talked about how possibly you're getting a disc from Kenny Dope. Question is will this thing possibly be able to read data from previous SP12, SP1200, and import sounds and that sort of thing?
Yeah. So I did a little bit more I'm losing my mind here for words. I did a bit more digging up really on what that entails, and managed to get hold of a few drives that actually work in the original unit. What I was hoping on originally is, because this is USB host, that what would be able to sort of plug in a standard run-of-the-mill USB external floppy drive. That's not going to happen, because we need sort of hardware access to the drive electronics. Rather than talking to it through a USB chip. So these drives actually aren't hard to get hold of. So if that's happening, this will be a separate external drive add-on that we have to manufacture. Put the drive in, and then our own USB circuitry that's geared up for talking to the drive in the way at which it needs to be talked to. I know that's really vague, but it's just sort of layman's terms. And then, yeah, then hopefully that can happen. We can unpack the data that's on original old discs. You know, there's especially people like Kenny Dope. Kenny sent me a photo of like this mountain of discs, like absolute mountain of floppy disks from his SP1200, and I'm like, ugh. And he's like, yeah, I need to get all this stuff on USB really, and I'm like, ugh. And so that would be really magical, I think. But for a lot of the older guys that have got those, that pull the backups in. But as I said, that product is only really going to be interesting to people that have got a back catalogue of stuff. So it'll be
also it would be interested to the forum junkies that kind of grab that stuff and whatnot. Now, I'll be honest with you, I've got a load of classic samplers here, and that's like, it's fun for a minute, but man, like my old discs, I started transferring some of them into my computer, and then I stopped, and I found that
like, why did I sample that?
I just like making new shit. So you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, why am I going back to my old shit? Like, I still have my old samples.
Some legitimate use cases for it, but they will be pretty niche, and it's definitely something I want to do. But it's not something that's right now, a priority.
I would say that if it's possible, in like a post 1.0 release, that's a good time to look at that kind of stuff, in my opinion.
Yeah,
like, I want to see.
Well, as I said, it won't really. It's not necessarily part of the firmware for this. It's its own separate It's a USB peripheral that has to be made.
Sure.
So.
What I'm kind of more getting to is like, if there's companies out there like Chicken Sis and that sort of thing. Like, if there's any way of like getting that kind of stuff and translating that sort of thing, whatever. But to me, it's more like, man, sequencers like, I've been involved in quite a few sequencer products in my past, and sequencers as a whole are that's a hefty take on. You know what I mean? So like, when you get involved in a piece of gear that is a new sequencer being built from the ground up, man, like, people, I think just the general customer has no clue how hard it is to create a proper sequencer and deal with all the little bugs that pop up. You get timing issues. You got to make sure that the CPU is calculating this at the same time as that.
Yes. And I think one of the reasons why that comes up, one of the reasons why that is a problem, is because people put sequencing into things when the hardware was already trying to do something else. And like I said, the sub processor that's going on the user interface board is fantastically overspec'd for what it's actually doing. And so, because it's not struggling to do anything, it's going to be more than happy at home being a sequencer. Whereas I think a lot of products fall over because they're trying to be a sequencer, but they're also scanning 50 buttons, and they're controlling LEDs, and they're looking at USB ports, or they're looking at MIDI ports for incoming data, and dealing with everything in interrupts and all this stuff. And so, if something takes a bit longer than it should do, then something else has got to give, and that might be getting your MIDI notes spat out of your sequencer,
Yeah, absolutely. And that's kind of what I'm saying is that it's just, there's a lot to process, because you're writing code for sample editing, you're writing code for sequencing, you're writing code for assigning MIDI. Like, that's a lot of work to do, before a product comes out. That's a lot of R&D. So in my opinion,
the topology of this is very much kind of like client server though as well inside this box. Rather, like I said, it's got two CPUs. So rather than everything being on one board, we've got like a host and a slave. You're not allowed to say host and slave anymore. Client server. I think we're allowed to say that one.
Yeah.
It's kind of that sort of relationship. It's almost like a separate MIDI controller controlling a separate hardware sampler. So we should have lots of headroom there for that.
So just questions in here about, like,
as long as that fog machine is MIDI controllable, it will control a fog machine.
So I mean, that, whatever.
Legitimate question.
Fair enough. I mean, I want to shoot lasers, No, one of the other ones that I saw in there is about clocking. In regards to clocking, what kind of emphasis are you putting on it being a solid clock? Because I know that's a real staple in something that's going to be, the heart of a machine. Like, you got to have a solid clock.
Yeah, well, again, I think that comes down to the load the load that the processor is under and it being so over spec'd that it shouldn't be an issue. I might sound like a bit of a wally when I'm talking about getting specific about coding stuff, because I'm not a software developer. I'm not a coder. I have a sort of basic grasp of concepts and how things can be done, but I don't know anything about syntax and
That's
that
not your
kind of
job.
stuff. So it's not my job. Yeah, I make things and I make them look good. I hope I make them look good.
Yeah, and I
It's
tell
up
you,
to someone
man,
else to make it work.
I tell you, you know, hey, can I see the side?
Yeah.
The side view? Let's take a look at that. So just for people to
Do you
kind
want me
of
to? Do you want me to get the Do you want me to get the original unit again and put it next to it?
sure, yeah,
Right.
grab that and just to
Talk
kind of give
to.
it.
Have a look through the comments or something while I grab it.
Yeah, so the reason why I'm having him do this is because man, when you look at the renders, you know, there was a lot of questions about it. A lot of people felt like, wow, like these pads are big, this, that, and the third. When you actually have a physical unit in front of you, things that look like a lot of people think that Eurorack modular cases like mine are huge. And they look really huge in pictures, but if you stand next to it, like it's really not that big. I mean, you know, so it's one thing to see it in person versus you know, whatever. Somebody talk about what is going on in the chat here. There's some weird stuff happening in there. I'm seeing side boob. What? Yes.
Side boobs. What?
I ate. Listen, I did not follow my diet today, and yes, it's a dope Iron Man hoodie. I'm a big comic book nerd, and if you don't know that about me, deal with it because yes, I am a comic book freak. Um,
Can you see those?
Hold on, let me click on the video here. There we go. Yeah. Can you lift up the 1200? The angle up the back, yeah.
I can't see myself. What's coming
That's
on my
okay.
screen?
Just angle up the back. There we go. Yeah. So it's significantly deeper, you know?
Yeah, it's pretty much the same width, but in actual fact, because I've gotten rid of like the certain aspects of it, the faders and everything are actually far more spread out. So you've got a lot more room around the pads and the faders, but built into the same amount of space. So there's less dead space. And if you want a profile view, which is what you asked for before, right?
Yep. They're calling it the side boob shot. Listen,
Side boob. Ah, right. Okay.
I'm okay with that.
So you've got that there, and then if we slowly reveal, ta-da, it's the original one.
What's funny is that the 2400 is chunky, but in comparison, you see like the sleek, you know, you see the savings.
Yeah, by all accounts, this is a huge piece of gear.
Yeah.
It's huge, but it's just not as huge as OG huge, you know?
Yeah, I tell you when I use my Emacs, like which is personally like it's my personal favorite color of sampler. Like I just love that thing. So I always have it hooked up and I'm always using it and it's massive. I mean that thing is huge. So yeah, you know, it's weird how like chunky large gear to us today comparatively is still like, you know, we can look at the images, but when you see it in person, you're like, oh, when you see it side by side, something older, you're like, man, that's okay. Nostalgia.
Yeah.
Up above the screen, there's three, like I can't see it too well from the distance, but what are the three things that I'm seeing up above the screen there?
Sampler gain,
Okay.
click volume, mix volume.
Now, are those standard alpha size pots or what are they?
Yes, these are alpha 9mm pots. This is a detented encoder with a push button. And these when I say detented, that means it goes click, 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 click as you turn it. That's a digital rotary encoder. These are pots. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, I think we can pretty much end the stream now.
Yeah, man.
But as we start to close out, is there any last moment things that we want to say before we do our next update? Which the next update is going to be after you get him back from Germany and like you've got some time to play with him.
Yeah, well, it's not coming back. This won't come back to me.
Okay.
It'll just be sending me code, and I'll be programming my one. But
Oh, I
so
got
yeah,
you. I got you.
hopefully, I'm hoping by the end of next week. Maybe even before then. I don't know, but I'm not going to push it. I'm not going to push my luck too much. The next thing will be, yeah, hey, listen to this.
Oh, hey, hold on. Here is a really good question. So the question is asked, can we make the SP2400 filtering effect accessible as a live processor? Meaning, like, can you run synths into it and then play with the filter or sequence the filters and envelopes, that sort of thing, and then out? Is that anything that's crossed your mind at all, or no?
Just break that down for me again. Say it once more. Do you
So
mean like being able to process external gear audio through
yeah,
the filters and stuff?
exactly.
It's possible. It's possible. It's not in there, and we haven't thought about it specifically. But the hardware lends itself to that. It's the codec chip or DAC and ADC is 8 out and 6 in.
So
We're
it's a
currently only
possibility that we
using
could
2
see that.
in, and
Yeah.
obviously because we've got things like one of the old painful things was that you weren't able to monitor the input signal. On the old school unit, whereas on this you'll be able to monitor the input signal as it's coming in. But so that process in itself is, just really the same as running it through. You're running it through the chip, the processor inside here. So yeah, it's quite possible that we'll be able to apply filters and stuff to external audio signals, but it would probably be taking up one of the 8 channels.
Yeah, sure. But
Yeah,
that would be kinda nice because especially if
yeah,
you can sequence the filter responses, like,
yeah.
be sending it
That's not me saying yes, it's going to do that.
Yeah, it's saying it's a possibility.
But it's definitely a possibility, yeah, and something we can think about and look at. And yeah, it'd be a cool feature for sure.
Alright, so beyond that, I would say, yeah, like, the next update will be post having had a good time with it, and hopefully, if everything goes smooth, we can see some units getting, pressed up and, moving forward soon. But
Yeah, man.
I'm impressed with the speed of the progress so far.
Thanks.
Definitely looking, man, it looks good.
Yeah, it's been a good ride. I mean, really enjoying myself doing this, but definitely like a passion project, you know?
Yeah, the thing is like I look at like the buttons that are on there and like the solid metal build and all that, and I'm just like,
Yeah.
man, it
Oh,
doesn't
yeah,
look
I didn't
cheap.
show you that. Like the composite parts that I've had to have machined up and made, aside from the PCB boards, these are like specially manufactured for me. Aluminium panels that had everything like cut out and standoffs welded in, to make the panels up, and then like the polycarbonate overlays that people see before, because you get custom ones of these made for your synths and stuff. So all of this was all stuff that had to be designed and done before the thing could be put together, and that's the things that take time, but they're the things that are now thankfully done. So it's all steam ahead, full steam ahead.
Well, I'd gotta say that it's looking mighty tasty, and I'm really looking forward to the project kind of continuing. So, and like I said, the speed that you're crushing it with is pretty impressive. I've seen a lot of these projects, and I'm constantly like, oh my god, you're at that point already. So it's yeah. Just make sure that you eat and sleep.
What?
Exactly.
Yeah, it won't be too long before I go to sleep now anyway.
All right. Well, look, we'll end the stream, and if anybody has any questions, Isla Instruments on Facebook.
We go back to
Flux
talking about
on
knobs when
Facebook.
we're off air, yeah?
Yeah, we're definitely gonna talk more about that. And yeah, man, if you guys have questions, comments, whatever, feel free to ask, and whatever we can, whatever makes sense to answer will be answered, and go
Yeah.
forward from there.
I try and give updates as often as I can on facebook.com/Isla Instruments. That's ISLA Instruments, or Instagram.com/Isla Instruments. Don't really use Twitter that much or anything else. Or there's a news feed on the website as well that the feed gets repeated on. So I try and give loads of updates that way. And of course through you as well.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you everybody for watching, and go buy a cord bod and whatever else. Yeah.
Too.
Peace.